Overheard they celebrated saving $200,000 by firing me. 2 days later a flood of contract cancellations hit their top execs. The CEO called me screaming, "What did you do?" I just told him to check his mail. The first red flag wasn't the calendar invite titled HR check-in at 4:45 on a Thursday. It was the silence when she walked into the room. 3 people, Janice from HR, some baby-faced legal intern, and the CFO, staring at her like she'd tracked dog shit into a funeral. No chairs offered, no pleasantries. Just a manila envelope already sitting on the table like a coffin for her career. "Marcy, appreciate your contributions," Janice began in that rehearsed corporate hospice voice. But due to strategic resource optimization and the broader Q3 restructuring initiative, the CFO cut in, folding his hands like he was about to sell her a reverse mortgage. "Your position has been deemed non-essential." Non-essential. She blinked once. Not because she didn't understand, because it hit like her rib cage had just been stapled shut. No warning. No performance review. No thank you card. Just non-essential, like she was a busted fax machine clogging up their sleek little org chart. Marcy took the envelope, nodded once, and walked out. She didn't cry. Not in the elevator. Not when she passed the receptionist who didn't even make eye contact. Not even when she noticed her badge had already been deactivated by the time she reached the lobby door. But she did stop outside the break room. Not for the stale coffee or the vending machine peanuts she always hated, but because she heard laughter. Loud, wet snorting, open-mouth laughter. "Just saved $200K, the CFO was saying. "One meeting. Boom. That's how you clear out legacy fat." A pause, then "She'll probably start an Etsy or some shit. Maybe open a candle shop. Good for her, right?" Cue more laughter. She stood there for 5 seconds too long. Just long enough to picture herself turning around, shoving that manila envelope down his throat and stapling it to his colon, but she didn't. She just walked out quiet, tight-lipped, nuclear with humiliation. 20 years. 20 goddamn years. She joined that company when they still used fax machines and pagers, when the website had spinning GIFs and the founder still knew her kid's name. She'd stayed through 3 CEOs, 2 mergers, 4 office moves, and an economic collapse. She ran point on every major contract renewal since 2010. She had actual baby teeth from some of those client execs kids in her desk drawer as part of a running gag. But to them, legacy fat. And, hey, if you've stuck around this long, consider subscribing. Apparently, 97% of y'all listen to these stories without hitting that little button, and trust me. It's the digital version of giving your favorite bartender a smile, but no tip. That one tap, that's what keeps the lights on and the petty vengeance flowing. Anyway, back in her Toyota, Marcy finally opened the envelope. Severance met NDA expected. A clause about returning all proprietary client information caught her eye, and then stapled near the back was a document titled Exhibit A. She squinted. It was familiar. Her own Excel template, actually. She built it a decade ago to track relationship health metrics, account anniversaries, executive birthdays, client pain points, preferred lunch spots. One client's kid had a nut allergy. Marcy had flagged it with a literal acorn emoji in the notes. They printed it out, all of it. No redactions, no revisions. Just the living, breathing heart of the company's top 40 clients laid out in ink and spreadsheet columns like a sacrificial goat. She flipped to the last page. It had her name on it, curated and maintained by Marcy Thompson. She leaned back in her seat, closed her eyes, and for the first time since walking out, she smiled. Not because she had a plan, not yet, but because the universe had just handed her a loaded gun in a pillowcase of polite HR language. And the CFO, he was still in the break room, laughing. She sat in the recliner that still smelled faintly like her ex-husband's cologne and dead ambition. Manila envelope guts spilled across her lap like roadkill on a 2-lane highway outside Toledo. The severance paperwork was standard, 2 months' pay, contingent on signing her soul to an NDA tighter than her Aunt Cheryl's church wig. HR's script even included suggested talking points for LinkedIn because nothing says closure like being told to thank your executioner publicly with a smiling selfie. Marcy shoved the fluff aside. Her fingers landed again on Exhibit A, that title, clinical, cold, like it was evidence in a murder trial. She flipped through it slowly now, page by page. Each one was a time capsule, column headers she'd created. Font size 11, Calibri. Back when they let her lead initiatives and not just plan happy hours. There it was, line after line of personal client notes, cross-reference with project histories, family trivia, handwritten remarks in the margins like daughter Sophie ballet recital every May, never book May. Raymond hates being called Ray once stormed out over it. Loves old school handwritten thank you cards file under Q3 outreach. Gluten-free, but not one of those people. Don't joke about it. Her initials tagged every field. Some of these notes dated back to 2010. She remembered scribbling one on the back of a napkin in a Chili's after a dinner with the Ryan Tech execs. They toasted her promotion with a 2-for-1 margarita special and told her she was the only reason they hadn't jumped ship. Now here it was, all of it, in a legally binding termination packet, and it wasn't redacted, not even slightly. HR hadn't even bothered to delete the comments section. One note read, "Client's wife has cancer. Do not pitch anything this quarter. Sensitive time." And another, "Prefers communication via text. Hates phone calls except from Marcy." Her thumb hovered there except from Marcy. She blinked again. That one hit a little different. What they'd given her wasn't just sloppy. It was dangerous. This wasn't just a client list. It was a full-blown relationship DNA profile mixed with emotional landmines and loyalty metrics they couldn't even comprehend. It had been built over 15 years of blood, birthdays, and bullshit. Every client on that list trusted her. Not the brand, not the logo, her. And now she owned it legally, accidentally, because someone in HR co-papisted too fast, and the CFO was too busy high-fiving himself in the break room over that $200K to notice they just handed the keys to the kingdom to the woman they'd called legacy fat. She didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She didn't even pour a drink. Instead, she sat real still. Let the grief cool in her veins like freezer-burned meat. A company that once called her their client whisperer had fired her like expired produce, and in doing so, they'd handed her a Molotov cocktail soaked in nostalgia and negligence. Her phone buzzed. A notification from LinkedIn. CFO Jenkins posted, "Always hard decisions when optimizing for growth. Grateful for everyone who helped us get here." Below it, the comments, "Love this. Tough but necessary flexed biceps # leadership." Marcy snorted so hard she nearly choked on her own tongue. She clicked view profile. Look at him. Smirking in his profile pic like he just won a sales trophy at a high school car dealership convention. His entire bio was buzzwords and bullshittery. She looked down at the list in her lap. 47 names, 47 relationships, 47 chances to watch this man drown in the same spreadsheet he signed off on. She didn't know when she'd strike. Not yet. The match had been struck, and the fire was patient. The bar wasn't fancy. Just one of those dim places wedged between a defunct JCPenney and a vape shop that smells like chemical blueberries and teenage regret. Marcy nursed a double bourbon at a sticky table under a neon Pabst Blue Ribbon sign that flickered like it owed back taxes. She hadn't been there in years, but the bartender still remembered her drink order. Said something like, "Long time, hon." Gave her a look like he'd seen that walk before. Shoulders slumped. Makeup still on, but emotionally disintegrating. Across from her sat Liz Hammond. Old client turned occasional friend turned we should grab drinks sometime purgatory contact. She now worked for VersaLink, one of the slicker, faster, better-funded competitors Marcy used to quietly resent. "So they really canned you?" Liz said, blinking over her martini like she couldn't quite believe it. "Like a tin of expired spam," Marcy muttered, tipping back another swallow. 20 years and they treated me like I farted during a funeral. Said I was part of the legacy bloat." Liz snorted. "Jesus. You were half their client retention strategy." Apparently, spreadsheets are the new charm. Should have majored in pivot tables and sociopathy. There was a beat of silence. Kind where you both know something heavier is coming, but pretend the jukebox is too loud to get into it. Then Liz leaned in. "Hey, not to be that person, but wanna jump ship?" Marcy raised an eyebrow. "I mean it," Liz said. "We've been trying to poach someone like you for years. You've got relationships money can't buy, and half your old clients have probably already noticed you're gone." "I'm radioactive," Marcy said flatly. Fresh off a pink slip in a severance package still warm from the printer. "You really think your C-suite wants that smoke?" Liz smiled, not kindly. More like a cat watching a blind mouse wander into traffic. "Our CEO loves radioactive, especially when it glows green and eats into our competitors' margins." Marcy didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Liz grabbed a napkin, wrote down an email address, and said, "Shoot your resume overnight. I'll forward it myself." Marcy went home buzzed, bitter, and still emotionally duct taped together. But for the first time since the dismissal, she felt something sharp flicker in her chest. Not joy, not quite hope, possibility. She sat at her desk still surrounded by unopened condolence flowers from coworkers too spineless to protest her firing and opened a blank document. She didn't even have to dig for her resume. It was already pristine. She kept it updated like a trauma survivor keeps a go bag near the door. 36 later, she was sitting across from a panel at VersaLink headquarters. The air smelled like new paint and ambition. No HR scripts. No jargon. Just real questions and people who actually listened when she answered. 48 hours after that, her phone rang. "We'd love to bring you on board," the CEO said. His voice like black coffee and a handshake you don't want to end. "You're account strategist. Full autonomy. We don't care about titles. We care about trust. Sound good?" Marcy stared out the window. Across the street, a construction crew was jackhammering the sidewalk like it owed them money. She smiled. "Yeah," she said, "sounds real good." She hung up and for a moment just sat there. Then she reached into the drawer beside her desk, pulled out the now creased pages of Exhibit A. She didn't need revenge. Not yet. She had value. And a new company that saw it. But her fingers still traced the corner of the document like a priest thumbing a rosary because value is nice. But leverage was holy. The VersaLink office smelled like lemon oil and fresh contracts. No dusty cubicle farms. No sagging ceiling tiles or war-zone key rigs. Just clean intentional space. People smiled here, but not that corporate please don't email me kind of smile. Real ones. Kind you forget existed when you've spent too long at a place where birthdays were celebrated with a passive-aggressive Slack emoji and a cold Costco cupcake. Her new desk was minimalist, sleek walnut, ergonomic chair that didn't squeak like it had a smoking problem, and a drawer that shut smooth as bourbon. That's where she kept Exhibit A, folded in thirds like a love letter from a life that no longer deserved her. Marcy didn't flash it around. Didn't walk in swinging it like a sword. She didn't have to. VersaLink played a different game. The CEO, a guy named Cal West graying at the temple, smart as hell, no trace of the usual tech world smugness, called her in for coffee during her first week. Not a meeting, coffee, no agenda, no pitch deck, just him, a mug that said don't mess with my margins and one question. So Cal said, leaning back, what kinds of relationships are you bringing with you? Marcy smiled, slow and closed mouth. A few strong ones might take time. He nodded, good. We don't need fireworks, just friction. Then he winked like he just told her where to hide the body. Back at her desk, Marcy started small. She wasn't looking to blow anything up. Not yet. She needed to understand where to place the charges, so she watched, listened, took notes. VersaLink's CRM system was sleek but impersonal. No texture, no muscle memory. No client birthday reminders scribbled in the margins. Just cold fields and drop-downs, no soul. She started quietly updating entries, not changing, enhancing, little touches, a note here, a preference there, who liked conference calls at 7 a.m. Pacific because their kid played hockey at night, who only responded to emails if the subject line included an inside joke. She built bridges, one steel beam or time. And in between onboarding trainings and strategy syncs, she'd pull out Exhibit A. Not for revenge, for research. Column by column, she began rebuilding the human terrain map her old company never understood. She cross-referenced client birthdays with contract end dates. Noticed that Q3 was particularly bloated with auto-renewals because she designed it that way years ago to align with annual budget resets. One client had a major software rollout scheduled in September. Without her to guide the testing phase, they'd likely be scrambling. Another was expecting a custom quarterly report she used to prep manually. She doubted anyone at her old place even remembered that was due. Pain points, pressure points. She started logging them, not digitally. That'd leave a trail. Instead, she bought a battered notebook from a gas station and labeled it Garden Tools with a Sharpie. No one asked. No one cared. But inside, page by page, she mapped it all out like a general plotting troop movement. By week 3, she knew which clients were vulnerable, which were merely annoyed, and which were one bad Zoom call away from jumping ship. She didn't breathe a word of it to anyone. Cal passed her in the hallway one morning and said, "Let me know if there's anyone worth reaching out to." Just that. Nothing pushy. She just nodded. But that night, she sipped coffee and highlighted another name on the list. Her hand didn't shake anymore because this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was restoration, and the foundation was nearly laid. It started with a subject line so casual it could have worn Crocs. Just checking in, smiling face with smiling eyes. The recipient, Paige Dunleavy, VP of Procurement at Kinley & Brooks, one of Marcy's longest-standing accounts. They'd worked together through 3 budget overhauls, 1 internal scandal, and Paige's ugly divorce, which they'd navigated together over steak salads and white wine on a stormy Thursday in 2016. Marcy didn't attach a pitch deck. No VersaLink logo. No signature block blaring her new title. Just, "Hey, Paige. Hope you're holding up in the madness. Just wanted to say hi and let you know I've landed somewhere new. Felt weird not staying in touch after all these years. No agenda, I swear. Just miss our catch-ups and wanted to see how you're doing. Take care, Marcy." She hit send and forgot about it or pretended to. 3 hours later, her inbox pinged. Subject, read just checking in, smiling face with smiling eyes. Marcy, holy hell, you're alive. I mean, I figured you were what in witness protection. The vibe over there has been weird. No announcements. No context. Just one day you're gone and we get dumped into some support portal run by what I think is an intern who thinks client escalation is a Mortal Kombat move. Where are you? Can I call you? Marcy stared at the screen for a full minute before smiling. Not that petty I told you so smirk. Something warmer, something deeper. She typed back, of course. Call anytime. Happy to catch up. I'm with VersaLink now. Paige called 30 seconds later. Okay, she started. Voice half sigh, half conspiratorial whisper. I'm gonna say it. It's been awful since you left. Marcy just listened. They tried putting us with some guy named Connor. Paige continued. He spelled logistics with a Z, like, intentionally, said it was a branding decision. I wanted to yeet my laptop out the window. Marcy laughed. That sounds innovative. Oh, screw you. You know, you were the only reason we renewed last year. You told me about the invoice delay before I even noticed. You sent flowers when my dad passed. Your name is still in our Slack vendor channel for God's sake. You never removed me? Marcy asked, eyebrow raised. Hell no. I was hoping you'd come back. That stopped her. Cold. Not I was hoping someone like you would come back. Just you. She didn't say anything for a beat. Paige filled the silence. Look. I don't want to jump the gun, and maybe it's premature, but if you're allowed to talk about VersaLink, I'd be interested in hearing what you've got going on over there, especially if it means I don't have to deal with Connor and his logistics. Marcy's heart thudded. Slow and powerful like the first drum beat in a bow march. I'd love that, she said. Let me get a few things together. We can talk next week, sooner, if possible. Our annual review's coming up, and I've got zero confidence in their team. Always made it feel like we weren't just a number. After they hung up, Marcy didn't immediately write anything down. She didn't rush into Slack or email her new boss with the good news. Instead, she sat there, quiet, still, and let the validation seep into her bones like a long, slow exhale. It wasn't just that they noticed she was gone. It was that they felt it. Her name didn't belong to her old company anymore. It belonged to her, and now, it was starting to travel. The war room wasn't a war room. Technically, it was a side conference room off the VersaLink East Wing, half filled with whiteboards, takeout containers, and a Bluetooth speaker that refused to connect unless you offered it emotional reassurance. Marcy stood at the head of the table. Exhibit A now divided into quadrants by renewal date, revenue impact, and emotional leverage. Her trinity of client conquest. To her left sat Ellie from Creative, hunched over a stack of mock proposals with a red pen and a murder glint in her eye. To her right, Raj from Sales, sipping lukewarm coffee and nodding at every suggestion like his mortgage depended on it. It might. Across the table, Cal Weston tapped his pen like he was keeping rhythm with her heartbeat. You're sure this isn't overkill? He asked, flipping through one of the tailored pitch folders. Overkill is sending a single email blast and hoping someone clicks learn more. RC said without looking up, this is surgical. Each folder was handcrafted. No generic here's what we offer nonsense. No stock photos of smiling professionals shaking hands in tastefully beige lobbies. These were custom-built dossiers, each one filled with analytics, project history, and solutions mapped precisely to the cracks Marcy knew had already formed since her departure. Client A liked face-to-face reviews. They hadn't had one since she left. Client B wanted quarterly performance benchmarks, but hadn't received them in 2 quarters. Client C Tech Scoo just went through a divorce. Marcy knew because she got the sympathy card he never received from their old vendor. Each packet included a handwritten note, same message every time. We understand you've lost your point of contact. We'd be honored to be considered elegant, honest, a scalpel where her old company would have used a sledgehammer. Raj whistled. Damn, these are beautiful. You want me to start following up next week? Marcy shook her head. No follow-ups. Not yet. Let them breathe. Let them feel the absence. Cal smirked. You really do know where the nerves are, don't you? I spent 15 years memorizing their pressure points, she said. I'm just giving them a gentle nudge. One by one, the packets were sealed into Mad Navy envelopes, each addressed by hand. No branding on the outside. No VersaLink watermark. Just clean, stark, and unmistakably personal. They looked more like invitations than pitches, and in a way they were invitations to leave behind mediocrity, invitations to remember what good partnership felt like, invitations to come home to the person who actually gave a damn. The last envelope in the stack was for Hartwell Dynamics, the big fish, the client her old CFO once called a non-negotiable pillar. Marcy licked the envelope shut and smiled like a woman sealing up a wedding invitation to her ex-husband's mistress. When the courier came to collect the stack, Marcy gave them one instruction: deliver them all on the same day by hand to the executive floor. No exceptions. The courier nodded like he'd just been handed nuclear codes. Then silence. No Slack messages. No texts. No dramatic reveals. Just the stillness that comes after setting the timer on a very polite bomb. 27 hours later, her inbox pinged. Subject: Hartwell Dynamics re-opportunity to reconnect body. Marcy, you have no idea how good it is to see your name again. Let's talk. Soon. Her breath hitched just for a second. She didn't respond right away. She waited, sipped her coffee, let the righteous anticipation crawl up her spine like a warm breeze through a cracked window. It lit the match when they fired her. She just handed them the gasoline. The first whisper came from a former intern now working at some boutique firm in Chicago. LinkedIn DM 9:03 a.m. Hey, Marcy. Lol. Not sure what you did, but I just saw 2 execs from your old place absolutely melting down in a Starbucks line. Heard something about client attrition panic. You okay? Also, respect. She didn't answer right away. Just smiled faintly and muted the notification. The second came 2 hours later via Slack. Not VersaLink Slack, her old company's. Because in the hurricane of deactivation and hasty exits, they'd never removed her from the external vendors channel where clients sometimes looped her in. It was mostly dead these days until someone named Connor posted a panicked message. Can someone send me the previous contact logs for Kinley and Brooks? Their procurement lead just canceled the Q4 planning session, said they are reassessing vendors. The word reassessing hung in her mind like a scent. 10 minutes later, another ping. Also just got off the phone with Hartwell Dynamics. They're pulling their dev budget and postponing contract renewal. Said their needs have evolved. Does anyone know what that means? She didn't need to guess. She'd written that phrase into one of the Hartwell proposal slides. Your needs have evolved. Here to meet you where you are. It was starting. Not a landslide yet, but the tremors were rolling. By noon, she'd heard from Liz, her old happy hour friend who'd helped her get into VersaLink. Text message 12:12 p.m. You seeing this? They just pulled out of the Midwest Innovation Summit. That's $150K in exposure gone. Word is the CFO skipped the leadership lunch and locked himself in the glass box all morning. Marcy didn't reply, just clicked open her not-so-metaphorical garden tools notebook. She flipped to the page marked Phase 2, Erosion. 3 names were now underlined. Kinley and Brooks, Hartwell Dynamics, Revlon Track, all marked with the same annotation, cracked. She didn't gloat, didn't blast a triumphant email or pop a bottle of champagne in the staff kitchen. Instead, she tidied her desk, took a walk to the corner coffee shop, and watched pigeons fight over a bagel. She felt a strange humming calm, like someone standing on a distant beach watching a tsunami roll in, not with fear, but with awe. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a contact she hadn't heard from in months, Sam, the junior PM who'd shadowed her for 2 years. Text message, 2:46 p.m. CEO just called an emergency all hands for tomorrow morning. Topic, client retention strategy. Everyone's freaking out. It's like the ghost of you is haunting the damn place. You're a legend, ghost of her. That hit different because ghosts don't rage, ghosts don't scream, ghosts linger, and she'd made sure to linger in all the right places. Later that evening, VersaLink sales team gathered for their Thursday check-in. Everyone took turns reviewing pipeline progress. When it came to Marcy, she simply said, 3 contacts re-established, 2 proposals in consideration, 1 signed. Cal Weston raised an eyebrow, grinned like a man who knew just how much damage one woman with a long memory and clean stationery could do. Quiet week, he said. Marcy leaned back in her chair, crossed her legs, and smiled that eerie Midwestern church lady smile that said, I'll bake you cookies and bury your body in the same afternoon. Just planting seeds, she said. Spring's coming early this year. The call came at 6:17 p.m., dead hour between just wrapping up and already poured a drink. Her phone buzzed once twice. Unknown number, Cleveland area code. She didn't answer right away. She watched it ring out like a surgeon timing a heartbeat. Then on the second try, she picked up, hello, a breath, then Marcy, just her name, no introduction. But the voice carried that specific blend of CEO panic and male entitlement, strained politeness overlaid on sheer desperation. Well, she said flatly, that was fast. I just got off the phone with 2 board members. Do you have any idea what kind of damage you've... What the hell do you think you're doing? There it was. The moment his composure cracked like a dollar store wine glass under boot pressure, Marcy took a slow sip of her tea. Earl Grey, no sugar. Just heat. I'm doing very well, actually. Thank you for asking. You've been contacting our clients. Don't play dumb. No. Been corresponding with people I've had relationships with for over a decade. If you accidentally gave me a contact list in your own severance paperwork, well, she let the sentence trail off like steam. That list was proprietary. You labeled it Exhibit A. I swear to God, Marcy, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. That's the thing about real control. It doesn't scream. It just sits there unbothered while the other party chokes on their own incompetence. You should check your mail, she said. Calm, cold, unflinching. He paused. What your actual physical mail courier deliveries probably dropped sometime yesterday. Look for navy envelopes. Hinnerton, you'll know them when you see them. Jesus Christ, not quite, but close enough for your purposes. He stuttered, full-on CEO meltdown mode. The stammer of a man used to swinging a hammer and now finding out he's been holding a boomerang. You orchestrated this, said finally, tone brittle. You're sabotaging us. I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm just available. Turns out that when people miss being treated like human beings, they tend to return to the one person who always did. She heard him breathing. That labored, wheezing kind of breath that only comes from realizing the floor is about to collapse, and there's no memo to fix it. You know how hard we've worked to retain those clients? You mean the ones you said were locked in? Once you reassigned to Connor and his fortnight vocabulary, she leaned back, propping her feet up on her ottoman. Yeah, real ironclad. You think this is funny? No, she said. I think it's poetic silence again. The long-wounded kind. Finally, he asked how many she didn't answer. Just smiled into the receiver. That's the thing about trust, she said. You never really know it's gone until it's too late. Then with a calmness that felt almost sacred, she ended the call. No profanity. No revenge monologue. Just click. She set the phone down gently. On her laptop screen, another email pinged in. Subject line excited to move forward, signed and returned. Marcy closed her eyes. Let it sink in. This wasn't just payback. This was performance art. The boardroom at her old company smelled like panic and overpriced air freshener. 10 execs, 1 oak table, 0 answers. Stack of envelopes sat untouched in the center like a pile of overdue confessions. Matte navy, no logos, handwritten names in clean, deliberate ink. The interns hadn't even known who to route them to. Half the C-suite thought they were invitations to a charity gala or some bespoke consulting pitch. They opened the first one at 9:01 a.m. By 9:08, the room was silent. Each letter was customized, not generic, not spam, tailored with eerie precision. It knew the client's renewal dates, service issues, and frustrations that had been escalated but never resolved. One even referenced a missing invoice correction that hadn't been handled since Marcy left word for word. "That's confidential," someone finally said, holding up a letter with shaking hands. Legal flipped through the packet of HR documents that had accompanied Marcy's termination. "Nope," said the junior attorney, pale, and already regretting her career choice. "Gave it to her. Labeled as Exhibit A. It's in the termination packet, but that's proprietary. She didn't steal it. We gave it to her, and she didn't use it to directly contact them. VersaLink sent these. She hasn't violated anything." Silence again. Then someone exploded. "You're telling me we handed our goddamn client list to the one person in the company who actually understood it, then we fired her, then she used it to crush us from outside, and there's nothing we can do?" "Technically," legal said, flipping another page, "yes." A junior VP tried to speak and choked instead. Someone knocked over a coffee cup. Another exec, red-faced and sweating through his synthetic suit, stood up and shouted, "Who the hell approved sending that document in her severance packet?" All eyes turned to the CFO, the same man who had once bragged about cutting $200K in dead weight. He didn't speak. Couldn't. Because just then, the chairman of the board, gray hair, 3 heart attacks deep and still mean as hell, leaned forward. "Do you still think firing Marcy Thompson was a good idea?" he asked. No one answered. Back at VersaLink, Marcy sat in her glass office, legs crossed, sipping a latte from her favorite mug, the one that read Legacy This. Outside, the fall sun filtered in through clean windows. Across from her desk, a small stack of signed contracts lay waiting to be processed. All of them recent. All of them poached. Her inbox pinged. Subject moving forward. "Marcy, our team's ready. We signed the agreement and look forward to working with you again. It already feels like things are back on track." She didn't smile. Not fully. She just closed the email, sipped her coffee again, and leaned back. Across the room, her desk drawer was still slightly ajar. Inside it, folded neatly, was Exhibit A. She never needed to touch it again. The war was over, and she'd won it without ever raising her voice.